This was Earth's last peaceful morning. It didn't happen in a single day, as many believe. Today, we relive the final hours of the dinosaurs. For millions of years, life moved in a perfect rhythm. Pterosaurs soared freely through the skies. Herds crossed vast plains. Mothers walked beside their young. Rivers gave life to everything that breathed. It felt like a world that would last forever. No creature knew what it meant, but across the planet, life could feel the change. At first, it was just a light in the sky, brighter than any star they had ever seen. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The air felt wrong. They didn't know what it was, but instinct screamed one thing: run. In the first seconds, the region near the impact was completely annihilated. But the destruction did not stop there. A colossal shockwave burst outward, racing across the planet faster than sound. Forests were flattened, mountains trembled, everything in its path was torn apart. As chaos spread, the air became unbreathable. Vast clouds of sulfur rose into the skies, and the very atmosphere began to turn deadly. Enormous waves rose, taller than mountains, sweeping entire coastlines from the map. Then the sky began to turn into night, a night that would last for years. The fires raged for weeks, but the worst was still to come. Dust, ash, and sulfur filled the sky, blocking the sun. Day turned into twilight. Twilight turned into darkness. The world was entering a new age, an age of cold. Today, we know how this story ends. But back then, Earth was a world ruled by giants. On land, giants walked without rivals. Dinosaurs had ruled the planet for over 160 million years. Herds migrated across endless plains. Predators patrolled vast territories. Herbivores, wrapped in natural armor, living fortresses. Hidden in the shadows, a giant theropod predator watches the herd. Long before the day the sky would burn, before the winter that would change the history of life, Earth was at the height of its abundance. Forests stretched across vast continents. Warm oceans flooded the lowlands. There were no polar ice caps. Life thrived in every corner of the planet. 66 million years ago, at the end of the Cretaceous period, the planet was warmer, more humid, and teeming with life. In the skies, primitive birds ruled the winds. In the seas, giant reptiles ruled the depths. At night, small mammals quietly began their journey. Earth was a world in perfect balance. Beneath that blue sky, the planet pulsed with energy. However, something was about to happen. Our lone traveler was getting closer. Earth's gravity had captured it. Then, the sky began to burn. Air compressed violently ahead of the rock. Heat rose in seconds. The surface ignited. The cold of space vanished, replaced by inferno. A trail of fire was born. The descent had begun. They looked to the sky as if they could already sense the danger approaching. Then, finally, they saw it. Seconds after the impact, millions of tons of sulfur and carbonate particles were blasted into the atmosphere, vaporized by an explosion equivalent to countless atomic bombs detonating at once. The sky ignited. A shockwave circled the planet within hours, leveling everything in its path. Forests were ripped from the earth, mountains trembled, Entire plains were reduced to ruin. Massive earthquakes tore through continents. The ground split open. Tsunamis, hundreds of meters high, surged across the coastlines, sweeping away entire forests and crushing every form of life in their path. The world was shaking. Nothing could stop what had begun. And then, fragments that had been hurled into space began to fall back to Earth, burning. Thousands of them. They tore through the atmosphere like falling stars. But this was no spectacle. This was extinction. The sky became a storm of fire. Wildfires ignited across the continents. Flames spread faster than anything had ever seen. Forests that had stood for millions of years vanished in hours. The planet was consumed in flames. The heat became unbearable. The air turned toxic, unbreathable. The age of giants was collapsing before it even understood what was happening. But the fires did not burn forever. They left behind something far worse. Ash, thick, heavy, relentless. It began to fall from the sky, covering forests, rivers, and the open plains. The sunlight faded, days grew dim. The warmth that had sustained life for millions of years began to disappear. Temperatures dropped, the air grew colder, food chains began to break. What had survived the fire now faced a different enemy. Silence, darkness, cold, and for the first time in millions of years, the earth no longer felt alive. The darkness did more than steal the light. It stole the very foundation of life. Without sunlight, photosynthesis stopped. Plants began to die. And when the plants died, the herbivores began to starve. And when the herbivores fell, the predators followed. It was not the fire that ended them. It was hunger. Weeks passed, then months. Ash remained in the sky, blocking the sun, lowering the temperature. What little life had survived the impact now faced a slow and merciless enemy. Starvation, one by one. The giants weakened, and the earth grew quieter. There was nothing left to chase, nothing left to eat one by one. The giants grew weaker, their strength faded, their steps slowed, and one by one, they fell, and the earth grew quieter. And beneath the oceans, the devastation was different. The impact had shaken the seas, coastlines were torn apart, shallow waters boiled, entire marine ecosystems collapsed near the blast. But in the deep, far below the reach of fire and falling debris, life endured. In darkness untouched by sunlight, ancient creatures carried on. The surface burned, the land froze. But in the silent abyss, life refused to disappear. But on the surface, the story was not over. Beneath the frozen crust of a dying world, life still breathed. Not powerful, not magnificent, small creatures hidden in the soil. While the giants starved, something fragile endured. They survived because they needed so little. The dust settled, life returned, but it was no longer their world. Extinction was not an end. It was a turning point, a transfer of the future. If the dinosaurs had never fallen, we might never have risen. The giants fell so we could rise. Time remembers every world that came before us, and there are still many stories waiting to be told. If you want to keep walking through history, stay with us.